entitled, Who is James Freeman Denyer, our illustrious president, distinguished Toastmasters? Circe Denyer.
Hang on, let me get that pen. Oh, iceberg.
Fellow Toastmasters and friends, I want to introduce you to my father, James Freeman Denyer. I want to tell you a little bit about him. For those of you who have heard some of my other speeches, you have some of the more interesting stories, but this will give you a little bit of fill-in. Born July 7th, 1927, in Chicago, Illinois, and by the age of 7, he had lost his father to a sudden illness, sudden death, and his mother went into deep grief and depression, and he was then sent off to live with his mother's sister's brother, who I heard was pretty strict. And my father learned how to be quiet and secretive and not make waves. So for a period of time, he wasn't in his own home. He and his sister lived with their uncle. And now, I found that out last month. I didn't know this all this time. Because knowing my father as I did, I never would have guessed that he'd been under the rule of anyone with any kind of disciplinary severity. Because he was mischievous and fun and alive and interesting. And he was very warm and loving and not strict at all. In fact, of my two parents, my mother was much more strict than my dad thought of being. He was always coming up with something fun to do. By the age of 16, he joined the Navy, but he missed the war because it ended right after he joined. So they let him go, honorable discharge. He worked in a Seattle logging mill for a little while, and then he came down to Los Angeles, attended UCLA, where he met my mother, and they married. And in the next 3.5 years, they had 3 children. My brother was born first and named after my father. His name is also James Freeman Denyer. My sister was born after me 2.5 years later, and myself. So there were 3 of us. So he had a family of 5 that he was supporting. And he began to work for the newspaper. First, the Times-Mirror, as a copy boy. And one of my speeches, I'm going to tell you the story of how he was on watch that night at 16 years old, doing what he did best, doing what he always did, and that was taking responsibility for his job. He always did that. That's something I remember about my father. But the one thing he told me to do when I was 16, first learning how to drive, he says, when you go get a job, make sure you like it. Make sure you enjoy what you're doing. Because if you have to get up in the morning and go do a job you don't like, you're not going to be very happy. And the whole idea is you should get a job you like so you can be happy. And I have followed that almost. I'm certainly following it now. And it's stuck with me. And I share that wherever I go. By the age of 46, my father passed from this life to the next instantly with a heart attack. He went to work. He got up in the morning. He had breakfast, as he always did, because my father was a breakfast eater. My sister got up, which is unusual because she's a late sleeper, but she got up and she spoke to him. She was living at home at the time. I was married with my family in Burbank. Well, my husband, because I was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. He got up, had breakfast, spoke to my sister, went to work, and my mother got a call. And he had collapsed on the floor. They called the ambulance, and he was dead before they got there. We miss him. I miss him terribly. But today I don't miss him as much as I missed him back then. Because today I know that when I think about him, he's right here with me. When I talk about him, he comes right through me. when I talk to my mom about him, like I did one day when we were sitting in the airport and tears start to come. I remember how he felt about me as a person, and today as a speaker, I sometimes hear myself sounding like him. So please join me in learning about my dad, James Freeman Denyer, as I give more speeches on the same topic. Madam Toastmaster.